Hi, I'm John Whaite and this is my recipe for mini Unbaked Alaskas. So Baked Alaska is a delicious traditional pudding, but a bit of a faff to make, so I do an Unbaked Alaska, and it's so simple with an Italian meringue, a chocolate cake and raspberry ice cream. It's important to get 12 fairly equal sized balls and scoop the balls onto a baking sheet. Now you need to work as fast as possible here because you don't want these to melt. So these need to go now into the freezer for about an hour, 2 hours. They need to be rock hard, and that way they won't defrost during serving. So the ice cream is in the freezer firming up, and while it's firming I need to make the sponge base. Into the mixer I'm going to put some butter and some golden caster sugar. Now I prefer golden caster sugar because, especially with the cocoa powder in the next layer, it really gives not too much of a caramel tone, but it gives a certain depth to the sugar. It's not just sweet saccharine, it's something about it. It's got a bit of body, and we all like a bit of body. So I'm going to blend these as any cake would go. Blend those together until pale and fluffy-ish. So just until the sugar's almost dissolved into the butter. So when the butter and sugar are well creamed, I'm going to add 2 eggs. In they go. And just beat those in. So when the eggs are well beaten into the mixture, I'm going to add about a heaped teaspoon of vanilla bean paste and then plain flour. No raising agent. And then just beat that in. And when it's well blended, stop mixing it. You don't want to put too much air into this. Then just scrape down the sides. Make sure you get all that flour that's not quite incorporated, and incorporate that too. And you can see that it's a very, very stiff, almost like a cookie dough mixture. Then you need to decant this into a well-greased and well-lined Swiss roll tin. So it should just fall out in one go. And then spread this as evenly as possible. And you can see it's going to be quite a thin layer. That's exactly what you need because there's going to be a chocolate layer on top too. Okay, so put that to one side. And then it's a case of just repeating that process, but rather than use just flour, I'm going to use a mixture of flour and cocoa powder, and then that way you get the chocolate layer. And then as soon as it becomes a paste batter dough hybrid, put it on top of the plain. So again, just scrape all the bits that haven't quite amalgamated off the sides, bring it into the mixture, just needs to be plopped here, disperse the brown mixture here and there. And then you can slowly and gently try and spread that quite evenly over the vanilla layer. This looks pretty damn good. So I'm going to pop this into the oven, get that baked, and then you'll see what happens in a minute. So the ice cream's in the freezer and the cake's in the oven. Time to make the Italian meringue frosting, and it's all about the eggs. So 6 egg whites, and don't even think about getting even a smidgen of yolk into this. It'll just mess everything up. Okay, I'm going to mix these now until they're just foamy. I don't want to create a stiff peak or a soft peak here, just get them foamy like this. So the egg whites are just foamy. It's time now to make a simple sugar syrup. Now a bit of caution is required because it's a hot stove and hot sugar, but really it's very easy indeed. And I use white caster sugar. I don't usually, but for a syrup it's important to see the colour is clear, so use white caster sugar. So into the white caster sugar I'm going to add some water. And then it's just a case of bringing this to the boil and then letting it come to 115 degrees. And for that I use a digital thermometer. Okay, so that's at 112, so I'm going to put the mixer back on. Medium speed. Okay, so that's 115. So that needs to be poured gently down the side of the bowl so it sort of cools a little bit into the mixture. Now, if it hits the whisk, it'll create like a candy floss. So down the side of the bowl is so important. And once the syrup's in, turn the mixer up to full speed and get it whisking until it's nice and cool. Room temperature is what we need. It could take 10 minutes, but just let it come back to temperature. Okay, so the mixture's looking very, very thick. It's about room temperature. Now to check it, I'm not going to hold it over my head, that's old news. What I'm going to do is hold the bowl up and see if the whisk stays in. Now if the meringue's stiff enough so the whisk stays in, you've got a perfect Italian meringue. And even if I shake it and jiggle it about a bit, it stays in place. So to cut the cake, I'm going to use a plain circle cookie cutter to cut out 12 equal discs, and you can see the two-tone of the cake mixture in the actual discs. Okay, so with the offcuts, it's just a case crumbling them up into the bowl into which I'm going to dip the ice cream balls. So I've got my crumbs, I've got the bases, I've got the meringue. I need to get the ice cream out the freezer. Okay, so these balls are frozen quite firm, and it's just a case of releasing them with a spoon, because they will stick to the tray. So release them with a spoon and into those crumbs, give them a quick coating, and then pop the crumb-coated ball onto the cake base. Now you need to act quite quickly with this, because the longer you leave these balls out the freezer, the quicker they'll defrost. So where the ice cream's been sat on the tray, there's a flat bottom. Use that flat bottom to stabilise it on the cake. So into the crumbs, and then flat bottom down onto the cake. Okay, that's the last one. Time to apply that meringue. So into the piping bag, I'm going to add some of the meringue. And you can see it's really still very, very stiff indeed. So twist the bag to keep it sealed, and then take one of your little Alaskas to be and just pipe on the meringue. Now the beauty about this is that you can be as uneven as you want, because the rougher the meringue, the more effective it looks. So just squeeze out the meringue, going in little sharp starry spikes all the way around, and if it flops over, that's okay. So cover the ice cream. So that's one. So the final touch to the Unbaked Alaskas is the fire. Now just use a chef's blowtorch and burnish the outside of the meringue. So work the way all the way around, and that's why I use the large star nozzle, because it gives those grooves, and it's exactly those grooves which sort of catch and burnish and give a really beautiful pattern and crunch on the outside of the meringue. Once these have been burnished, they need to be served instantly, otherwise they will sort of melt and go to a soup. It'll be a tasty soup, but it won't be an Unbaked Alaska.